Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. All right, there we go. All right, so I had it muted from when I was over on Facebook. So, anyways, well, welcome to the last day of 2024. We're of course just waiting a few minutes see if any more of my panelists are going to show up tonight. So I'm going to have a bit of a panel, but as always, things don't always work out. But hopefully, some of them will show up soon. So, of course, what's on tap tonight today is the final day of 2024. So, so what we will be doing, we'll be looking back on all that happened in the world of niche from 2024. Go back and we'll look first to comics and manga, and then you know animation and anime, and then wrestling. We will be doing we will be doing um, hey Metal. Hey Mike, running amok at the moment. Might be in sometime between 5 and 10. All right, cool. I'm just glad you're coming, man. I didn't. This is one show I didn't necessarily want to do alone. I wanted to make sure we had some panelists to where we could talk about some of this stuff. So, anyways, well, if as long as you can get here, just the sooner the better. So I hope to see you here soon. All right, talk to you in a few minutes. Anyways, so yeah, so let me at least talk about what's on tap for tonight. As I was saying, we're going to be going over basically a lot of what's happened, throughout 2024. Look ahead to 2025. We'll start off probably with comics and manga. Talk about some of the stuff there. Um, do what they call an in memoriam, which is basically just looking back on those who passed on during the year. Then we'll talk. Then we'll get in the animation and anime portion of it. Do the in memorial there, and then depending on who's here and all that, we may, I might just simply do just the in memoriam for wrestling, or if I'm the only one here, maybe I will go through some of that, for those who do like wrestling stuff. Um, and then of course we'll have the this day in each history, um, and then we will of course we'll we'll have this day in each history. Then we'll wrap things up, close things out. So if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that would be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So as we just wait for more people to show up, I mean, if you have anything you want to bring up or ask or anything like that, feel free to do so, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So we're just waiting to see as more people come in. Um, so yeah, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Bub bub dub 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 dub. You can always be number one. You can always be a winner. ravage the land as never before. Total destruction from mountain to shore. Do 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 do. Come along with the snorks. Swim along with the snorks. So much to see waiting for you and me. Have some fun with the snorks. If you could breathe underwater, where would you go? If you had friends underwater, who would you know? Come along and sing along too, yeah. Come along with the snorks. Swim along with the snorks. Happy to see waiting for you and me. Have some fun with the come along with the have some fun with the snorks. Let's see. And we're animaniacs. And we had paid for play contracts. Animani, totally insane. Animaniacs. Let's see now. What else? Those are the facts. Scooby. Haggie's gonna help you. Scooby Doo. Scooby. Scooby Dooby Doo. Looking for you. Scooby Dooby Doo, where are ya? All the stars are here waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without ya. Scooby, Scooby Doo. Hey Scooby, where are you? Over here. Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. Have a yabba dabba do time. From the town of Bedrock, in the place out of history. That's right, with the family down the street. Rudolph, courtesy of Fred Heap. When you're with the Flintstones, have a yabba dabba do time. A dabba do time. We'll have a gay old time. Meet George Jetson. Do 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 do. His boy Roy. Do 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 do. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh, there we go. Hey, Metal.
Are you trying to ruin what little viewer retention you have?
Not really. I'm just trying to fill in time until you guys can get here. Why? You trying to say my singing is actually turning people away?
I was trying to be polite about it, yes.
Actually, I've been told I have a pretty good voice, actually, but no, I
It
mean,
would also help
just,
if you knew the lyrics to everything you were singing.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's like obviously I don't. Obviously, as you know, dead air is not necessarily looked at as being a very good thing. You know, just sitting here staring at the screen, just sitting around waiting, and trying to figure out what to talk about in the meantime, or figure out what to do in the
Oh,
meantime.
you got to learn how to monologue, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can monologue. I just can't monologue long enough because I mean I did monologue for a few minutes there. Even before you came in there, went off on like just talked a little bit about what we're going to be doing and what we'd be talking about tonight. So I mean, I'm just trying to read what your subheader said there.
Now it says New Year actually starts January 29th.
And what's that supposed to mean?
It's the Lunar New Year.
Ah, all right. So, anyways, well, just another friendly reminder before we do get started here. for those who may not have to who may not have yet, you guys can like and share the stream to see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So now that I do have at least one of my panelists here, why don't we go ahead and get into the topics at hand here. So as I said, first off, we're going to focus in on comics and manga. Focus on that stuff. So, and I don't know if you heard any of what I was talking about earlier with how we're going to do this tonight, Metal. Um,
Oh, I'm not even here. I'm gonna be honest.
You're not here mentally. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like I'm trying to participate in conversation as much as I can, but I'm doing prep work myself while doing stuff. So I tried to get in as soon as I could. And at some point, I'll probably still be in here for that, but Marsupial's going to get here, and then we're going to start making our New Year's stir fry. And then sometime after we're done eating, I'm going to be running a show all the way through the New Year, late into the night.
Okay. Well, Marsupio is also welcome to join us if he'd like as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be cooking the second he gets home.
All right. All right. So okay. So anyways, well, what we're gonna do? So what we're gonna do? We're gonna just try to go over some of the like main main events of the past year, and then we'll do like the in memoriams, and then you know what an in memoriam is, right?
Yes, I have seen the Oscars more times than I would like.
Yeah, and then we'll go through all that with the college comics and manga, and then animation and anime, and then we'll probably just do the in memoriam for the wrestling, just simply because I know you probably watched wrestling as a kid, but didn't really watch, but you're not into it now. I get that.
I didn't watch it as a kid.
All right. Well,
In fact, I probably know more about wrestling now than I did back then.
Oh, you saying you watch it more now?
Not by choice, really.
Oh.
I mean, I've said before, I like the characters and stuff like that. Being somebody who has been practicing combat since I was like 5 years old, the very obviously fake combat was something that I could never really get around. But I can respect that it's good theatrics and gymnastics and stuff like that. And there are a lot of personalities that I like. Well, and occasionally, when I have friends who like wrestling and they have it on, I'll watch it with them.
Yeah. Well, first off, granted, the more like athletic acrobatic stuff has been more, let's say, the last like 20 years, because back like when I was growing up, and even maybe to a lesser extent when you were growing up, it was a bit more ground wrestling basis. And I know people sometimes think of it as phony or fake, but it's not really phony or fake because guys can actually get hurt.
No, I'm not. Well, I'm saying it's fake combat in the same way that any combat in theatrics is. You can get hurt at all. They're stuntmen. They're doing actual work. I'm not calling it like fake. They are doing athletic stunt work, but as somebody who does fighting, I can tell when somebody is like hovering over somebody in a back grip, and
like some of the more preferred terms for it are choreographed or even unreal. With the idea is they're not actually going out there trying to actually hurt each other. They're trying to put on a show and using combat as a means of storytelling.
Yeah. And you get this stuff in movies too. It's just with movies you can control camera angles and make it look a little bit more real. While I don't know, it's there's less of an illusion when I'm watching wrestling.
Right. That's just understandable. So but anyways, we'll do the in memorial there, and then we'll we'll do the this day in each history, and then close everything out. So anyways, with all that being said and done, let me pull up my reference material here for tonight here to kind of help me as soon as I can figure out. Okay, that's what I was looking for right there. All right, so as I said, we're gonna first look at the comics and manga aspect of it. I'm just gonna, breeze through. I'm obviously not gonna try to hit everything because we'd be here quite a while. But I am gonna hit on some of the more like bigger points, some of the more bigger stories that were covered, um, or at least just from my vantage point. So the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about here was back on January 10th of this year, the first issue of Marvel's Ultimate Spider-Man by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto is published. This version of Spider-Man is set on Earth 6160 and follows a 35-year-old Peter Parker who is married to Mary Jane Watson, has two kids with her, and wasn't bitten by the radioactive spider when he was a teenager as he deals with his newfound heroic responsibility. So basically, as I understand it, he's with Mary Jane here. He didn't actually get bitten by the spider until he was like an adult, and now that's what this version is focusing on. And as I've heard throughout the year, because I know Yellow Flash talked about this too, this is of all of Marvel's works right now. This is one of the books that's actually um, been looked at with some praise. It's been looked at positively. Um, people have been more receptive to it. Because a lot having to do with the fact that it's got Peter and Mary Jane as a couple, and there's like I just did an article went over an article the other day where they were talking about how they're redoing the Amazing Spider-Man book, restarting it again. And again, a lot of fans are, in fact, it's gotten so bad that even on their own social media accounts, Marvel is like basically deleting negative comments. So
yeah, the problem is because I've been looking into some of this based on people's claims that it doesn't seem to show in the sales, though, right? Like if you go to a place like Comic-Con and you look at the month by month sales, for the most part, Ultimate Spider-Man often doesn't even make it into the top 10. Or whatever. Sometimes I think Comic-Con has top 20. It doesn't even make it on the chart. And I've looked several times, while like Amazing and Spectacular Spider-Man are almost always there in the top 20, sometimes even the top 10.
Yeah. Have you checked out ICV2?
No, I've not.
Yeah, that one is one I know that Yellow Flash is. I don't know. Again, I don't know because I don't read any of the current comics.
Yeah.
So, because for me, it's like I'm on with me being on, a fixed income and all of that. It's like I can't sit there and buy like 20, 30 books, because if you know anything about me, you know that I'd want it if I was to engulf myself, I want to engulf myself in the entire world, right? So
yeah,
I have to have every, and it's like just not, especially with what I've heard with some of this stuff, it's just not worth it to me. But
well, that's been my problem too. I do like to just jump into the whole thing, and they just have not been selling anything worth buying, or even in a way that's worth buying, right? Like I know a lot of people, especially maybe if you have eyesight problem, I don't know, but you kind of want a physical copy of the book that you can read in front of you. Me, I'm perfectly fine with digital in any regard if it's in a good enough format. And unlike, say, like Shonen Jump, who has their app and you can get like a $3 a month subscription to the Shonen Jump app, Marvel doesn't really have a competitive option for that where you can just get like a subscription service and read all of the most recent comics. And I think that's one of the reasons they're missing out. It's not just how bad their stuff is, they're not accessible.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, and you notice that you've co-hosted with me before on some of my historical comic records. I often like the digital idea too because with digital, by having it on screen here, I can always adjust the font if I feel that the print is too small.
And you can zoom in, make it as big as you need it to be.
Right, and and you've probably heard me struggle through some of those readings too, especially, sometimes the font, even by trying to make the font bigger, doesn't always help because sometimes the scan is bad or
Yeah.
somehow other aspects, the comic is somewhat damaged, and so yeah, but basically with Ultimate Spider-Man, that's what I'd heard, that at least people were more happier with it.
I've heard
But
long-term diehard fans have been happy with it. The problem is, at this point, they're just a very, very small part of the consumer base. Not that there's a big consumer base for Western comics in general, but there's actually less of them than the people who have still been buying like Spectacular and Amazing Spider-Man.
yeah, well, also though, yeah, and I see your point there too, and I think that's the general point. Um, but then again, what we've also seen over the last few years is a lot of the older, as you said, long-term older fans have probably been turning away from what's been coming out more recently for the
Yeah.
most part because of what's been going on. And that's how we got the whole thing with Comicsgate and have guys like Mike Barron and Ethan Van Sciver and Chuck Dixon doing independent stuff now. Because the mainstream comics are just turning off, particularly a lot more the older fans. So I see your point there. Um,
Yeah, it's like, what can they do to fix that even, right? Even if they started making good stories out of nowhere, it's like, unless you just do a complete retcon, like just start over from some other point in history, you have to deal with all the trash that they added to the timeline between then and now.
yeah. Well, and that in of itself is another problem that was complained about recently too. In that article I told you about that I covered like a couple week or so ago with Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that a lot of people are not happy about. The constant rebootings, the constant restarts. A lot of people are not happy about that either. so, so that plays into it. Anyways, let's move on to the next. Let's look down and see what else we can find here in terms of the. As I said, I'm not going over everything, just some of the more bigger stuff. So back in April, on April 9th, and I remember covering this story, in fact, um, a rare copy of the very first Superman issue, Action Comics 1, sells for $6 million at an auction, breaking a record as the most expensive sale of a comic book ever. I know that every time I've covered one of these particular articles where the comics were sold at because I've covered Avi's articles on it, Avi Green from Bleeding Full, right? And his issue with a lot of this stuff is he's more upset with the speculators for this because instead of these physical copies being able to sit there and read, people just sit there and collect them more for the money value and just lock them in a safe somewhere just so nobody can read them. And I know I know he's often talked about that, but that is something, I'm sure that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster back in 1938 never thought that the first Superman story in Action Comics #1 would rake in $6 million.
Yeah, but there's something you just can't control about that, right? Certainly to it, it's a nature of preservation. I would very much prefer to read any comic that I have, but due to how flippantly people got rid of comics back then, like when it was first made, and also due to fires were more common back then too, just because of the way houses were wired and all sorts of different things. There aren't a lot of copies of it, right? So just out of the sheer rarity is what drives the price up. And if you were somebody who had that, even if you were a reader, you wouldn't actually want to read the first one. You'd rather just like keep that to store and then get a reprint of Superman, the Action Comics #1. because even your fingers, the oil on it could end up destroying these old, delicate pages.
Hmm. Yeah, good point there. Um, good point. All right. So, anyways, can we
It's also
move
why
on?
like modern comic books are not collectibles because there's just too many of them. They're not rare like these old ones that got destroyed in fires or used to just get thrown away. It's like you could find thousands of copies of things made within the last 30 or 40 years. They're never going to be collectibles.
Hmm. All right. And then on May 20th, Russell Myers, best known for the newspaper gag comic Broomhilda, enters the Guinness Book of World Records with the title longest running daily cartoon strip by a single author. I don't know if you read Broomhilda or not. I don't. But this in of itself is a pretty significant thing when you get, when you set such a world record that you get put into the Guinness Book of World Records, right?
Yeah, I'm not a reader, but I'm familiar with it. I've definitely seen some Broomhilda before.
All right. Now, also another key thing here. Again, not that we probably would have much to say on it, anyways, but on September 28th, the Mark Sleen Foundation announces that as of January 1st, 2025, so as of tomorrow, all comics by Mark Sleen will enter public domain uh, prematurely. Now, from what little I did find out, because when I was going through the desk down there earlier, I guess one of Mark Sleen's biographers, and then I looked up who Mark. So Mark Sleen is, I guess, a Belgian comic author, but aside from that, I don't know if he was like real well known or whatever. But I guess his works are. Um, and then the last story here, which happened on, or the last thing they point out here on the that happened on Halloween. And this is another story I kind of covered because of what's been going on the last few years, of course. After criticism of supposed racial and sexist stereotyping, the latest Spiro et Fantasio album, which I believe is maybe a Dutch comic, I believe. Spiro et la Gorgone Bleu, drawn by Danny, publishing company Dupuis orders all copies to be retrieved from the market. Now, again, Belgian. I think this is a Belgian comic. Not that we, obviously we can't unless it's translated English. Likelihood we'd even read this would probably.
Yeah, it definitely sounds French, which is one of the languages they speak in Belgium. So
Yeah. So basically, but I know I covered that story just because of the woke aspect of it. So with that being said, so that's at least that's. Are there any other like memorable events in comics that cross your mind that you want to mention and talk about there, Metal? Before we move
um, not that I can think of.
Apex. Hey, Apex. I know I sent you the link, so if you want to join us, feel free to do so. That way you can. I saw that you did reply to him. Um, feel free to join us if you can. Yeah, more to the merrier tonight, as we're just kind of going back. As I said in my little subheader there, 2024 out the door, and 2025 comes alive. So, anyways,
Speaking of changing years, in the end of the month when the lunar calendar resets, we'll be going from the year of the dragon to the year of the snake.
oh yeah, oh you're talking about the zodiac, right?
Yes, the lunar zodiac in like Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I heard that. All right. So, anyways, as we now get ready So let's look at some of the in memoriams here. I won't again. I won't do every one of them because I'm going to focus primarily more on obviously more well known names and American and Japanese because of course comics and manga. So let's see. Haruo Takahashi, Japanese manga artist, who did Iwa, Iwayuru Hitotsu no Chozan Shugi, dies at 76. Um, let's see. What else here? Yeah, and I remember covering this story. Okay, so the one we just talked about there, that happened on January 12th. And then January 29th, and I did actually cover this one too. Hinako Ashihara, Chinese manga writer and artist, who include Forbidden Dance, Sand Chronicles, and Sexy Tanaka-san, dies at age 50. Now, when I went back and looked over this, how I was reminded. So she apparently committed suicide shortly after going to on social media to criticize how they had, I guess, how they did the anime adaptation for her manga, Sexy Tanaka-san. I don't know if you've read any of her stuff or not.
Not familiar at all.
All right, I think this is obviously more, there's obviously more recent stuff. So let's see. Fembat. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot to let you introduce yourself. And he's saying he's at work. All right. Well, for those of you who want to check it out, Apex, of course, is doing. You got Fembat Volume 1 on Fun My Comics. So there's the link if you guys want to go check that out. Meryl, if at any time you want to share any links for anything that you're promoting, feel free to do so.
If I feel like it, I definitely don't feel like I want to do that in the middle of talking about dead people.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry about that. uh, let's see. I'm at work, and then Sexy Forbidden Dance Chanika songs. All right. All right. So, anyways, let's see. Who else can we do? Some. Let's see. What other in memorials? Jack Higgins, American editorial cartoonist, dies at age 69. Let's see. Akira Toriyama, Japanese manga artist known for Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball, age 68.
Yeah, the big one to pass away.
Yeah, from the manga aspect of it, probably the most famous of one of the more famous names that we'll see on here. Chance
I would
Brown.
say even manga or not, probably the biggest name in comics to die this last year. Right. Like there could have been bigger names in other years, but like he's had more influence on the industry, I think, than anybody else who's passed away this year.
Right. Chance Brown, who is an American comic writer artist, continued high and lowest, dies at age 75. All right, let's see. And I'm just going through and looking at MD Bright, and I've seen that name a few times. He passed away at age 68. He was an American comic book artist who worked on Iron Man, Green Lantern, Icon, Quantum, and Woody. And then, of course, Ed Piskor, another name we looked at
Yeah, another huge one.
on April 1st. American comic writer and artist, hip hop family tree, WYSIWYG, Red Room, worked on X-Men stories, dies at age 41. Tina Robbins, American comic book artist, and I did cover her. She co-founder of Friends of Luke. She was a feminist comic book artist who died on April 10th, 9 days after Ed Piskor did. Let's see, among her works include It Ain't Me Babe, women's comics, scripted stories for Wonder Woman, and Go Girl. Author co-wrote Women's and the comics, A Century of Women Cartoonists, um, Great Women Superheroes, from Girls to Girls, the history. Basically, Trina Robbins was probably more well known for bringing about more feminist comics to the forefront. Um, let's see, Don Perlin, American comic artist, Werewolf by Night, Ghosted the Spirit, continued Ghost Rider, co-creator of Moon Knight, Bloodshot, dies at age 94. Let's see. That happened on May 14th. Peter B. Gillis, another American comic book writer, worked on Strike Force, Morituri, Captain America, Doctor Strange, dies at age 71. Again, I'm just trying to go through these as quickly as I can here. Let's see. Mark Bright was great at Quantum and Woody. Fun book from Valiant Comics. All right. Thank you for that, Apex. Thank you for that contribution there. All right, so let's see. Yeah, so let's see. Hmm. And if there's anything you feel you can add, Metal, feel free to just chime in. Um, September 9th, John Cassidy passed away, the age of 52. He was an American comic book artist. Among his works include Planetary, Astonishing X-Men, Captain America. I know we covered that as well, covered his passing when that happened. Let's see. Bob Foster, American animator, storyboard artist, comic writer, and editor. Myron Moose Funnies, Disney Comics, dies at age 81, back on September 30th. We get into October here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Greg Hildebrandt, American illustrating comic artist who worked with Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Terry and the Pirates, dies at age 85. But look at how many people died in the comics industry this past year. That's quite a few, wouldn't you say? A lot of them
Yeah,
died.
to be fair, a lot of them were like above the age of 70, so you're like wondering when they were going to finally click away. Like some of these were in their 90s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, anyways, so that's at least all that we have for the comic manga portion of the show. But now we're gonna move on to
I'll add a personal in memoriam. My grandfather passed away just a few months ago. So
Um, actually, well, let me get these comments in, and what we'll do, I want to do one last moment of silence for those that we just mentioned, as well as those who we just talked. Obviously for those who passed on, I want to do just a quick moment of silence, and we'll move on to the next section here, talking about animation, anime. Let's see, Don Perlin's next to the last artwork was the variant cover to Smokes the Fox #1 from Belmont Press Comics. Scroll back to November. Okay, I guess scroll back to November. I guess okay. Well, I've scrolled back to November. Apex. Was there somebody here that you wanted to make mention? Yeah, I scroll back to November here. So, was there somebody there that you wanted to? We have Swiss comic artist, Dutch comic artist, French comic writer, English editorial cartoonist, who was 96, and then a Dutch composer. No, I read all of it. Thanks, Mike. All right, no problem. All right, so with that, then now we're gonna move on to the animation and anime portion of the show. Um, and when I was preparing for the shows tonight, when I went through 2024 in animation and then 2024 through anime, I realized I might as well just do it all on the animation one, because the only thing they have on the in anime was just the in memorials for those specific. They didn't have like the events and stuff, so I figured probably just be easy to get everything just by sticking with in animation. We'll look back on some of the stuff that happened in the work in during the past year in animation and anime here. Go through the events here. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing I forgot to do, as I said, uh, observe a moment of silence for those who passed in the comics and manga realm. So we're going to just, for a moment or two, we're just going to do a moment of silence for those who passed in the comic realm. So here we go. All right. I know that may have seemed a little too quick, but observing silence. All right, but want to make
well,
sure.
I can't say that I'm observing the silence into the microphone, or else I wouldn't be observing the silence.
Good point. All right. So anyway, so now we're moving on to the 2024 animation. Where we're going to talk quote anime and animation here, Western animation. So all right. So let's see. So back in January, let's see. Of course, back January 1st, almost a full year ago here, the first Mickey Mouse short film, Steamboat Willie, enters public domain in the United States. That was something that we, of course, talked about. Let's see, what are some of the other? Um, so there were a few movies that were released in the theaters after being stream exclusive on either Disney or Netflix. The first of which was Soul. That was stream exclusive due to the COVID. Let's see. So Mari Okada's original anime film Maboroshi by Studio Mappa made its international VOD debut on Netflix 4 months after having a theatrical premiere in Japan in September 2023.
Yeah, Mappa's really been hitting it these last few years, especially working with Netflix. That's the same studio that did the Ranma remake.
Yeah. And then, of course, on January 25th, The Masters of the Universe Revolution premiered on Netflix, which, of course, there was quite a lot of talk about that with what they were doing. I know a lot of the criticism came where they basically muted, or muted He-Man, and and I think basically put Tila at the forefront, as it were. I believe Revolution was the one that wasn't that the one that was it Jack Black or Jack Smith, oh wait. No, I'm thinking it was the guy who Silent Bob and
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith. Okay, yeah, Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, and that's who it was.
Yeah. That's I refuse to watch any of his version of Master of the Universe. To me, the best one for Master of the Universe actually was a remake, and it was like the early 2000s He-Man. I think they captured the original very well the way they did that. I don't need anything else.
Oh yeah, the 2002. Are you talking about the 2002
Yes.
version
that one was great.
Yeah, that basically had the Ocean Studios voice crew in there.
Yes. And they actually made Prince Adam and He-Man like different body types, so you're not just like, that's totally the same guy, just in a different outfit. It's more believable that people didn't know they were the same person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, yeah. On February 7th, Disney's Bob Iger announced in a CNBC interview before the studio's first quarter earnings that for the studio's first quarter earnings that the studio was turning a Moana TV series into a feature sequel for theatrical release in November. And we've been seeing a lot of news on that because I think The Rock was actually in that one, as I recall. So Doraemon Nobito's Earth on March 1st, Doraemon Nobito's Earth Symphony, the 43rd film in the Doraemon franchise, was released in Japanese cinemas by Toho. It serves as a special project to honor deceased manga artist Hiroshi Fujimoto and Moto Abiko of Fujiko Fujio. Any
I
comments?
can't believe that Doraemon is still going. Like, it's still running all these years later in Koro Koro Ichiban, the kids' comic book magazine. Like, it's crazy that it's still going. It's like right there next to the Pokemon Adventures.
Well, Doraemon has, as I understand, has been around for like 50 years.
Yeah, I know. That's like, it's why it's crazy that it's still running.
74. Now, I did I think a year or two ago, I did see like I think it was the 2000s version, where Johnny Young Bosch provided the English voice for Nobito in that series. But
Yeah.
but yeah, that Doraemon's been going for like 50. I mean, I know another long series that, even though it didn't have quite the same level of success in the States, and Funimation even stopped dubbing it after, I think, episode 30, but it's still going strong in Japan, is Detective Conan. Case closed.
Yeah, that's actually longer than like One Piece with how many chapters it has.
Yeah. Let's see. The first batch of English dubbed episodes of Pokemon Horizons, the series, premiered on Netflix in the United States on March 7th, almost 11 months after its Japanese television release back in April 2020, April 14, 2023. Um, let's see. Of course, at the 96th Academy Award, Studio Ghibli's The Boy and the Heron, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, wins Best Animated Feature, making it the first 2D animation film to win since Miyazaki's Spirited Away in 2003. I haven't seen The Boy and the Heron, but I saw Spirited Away. That one was a pretty interesting film. And
Yeah, I
he
haven't seen The Boy and the
there.
Heron yet either. I wanted to when it was in theaters, but I
Mhm.
was very, very conflicted because it had a very short run, and I wanted to see Godzilla -1 at the same time, and it was ending. So I'm like, "Ah, which one of these two am I gonna watch?" I watched Godzilla -1, and I never went back to the theater to see Boy and the Heron.
Hmm. All right. And then on March 20th, X-Men 97 premiered on Disney Plus. And I know there was a lot of discussion on that. And so, despite a lot of despite a lot of what was said, um, initially, from what I've heard from people who've actually watched the series, it wasn't quite as bad as people thought it was going to be.
I
Any
didn't watch
comment?
it,
You didn't
and I
watch it?
don't plan to.
Yeah.
Because, like I've said before, I didn't like the end of the original series. I thought it was going downhill, and then looking at the trailers, I didn't like the way the animation looked.
Yeah.
It looked very similar. It was too sharp, right? Because it was new and it was digital, and it's like, nah, man, I don't want this.
Well, my problem would be, now I know some of it was some of the voice actors, of course, had passed away. Um, like Norm Spencer, who originally did the voice of Cyclops back in the '90s, had already passed away. So Ray Chase replacing him, okay. But like, one of the things I didn't, care for when I heard about this, Alison Court deciding to, give up the role of Jubilee so somebody else could do it, just for all the whole sake of DEI or whatever, diversity. But now I understand that like Catherine Disher did not reprise the role of Jean Grey. It was taken over by Jennifer Hale, but that one was more due to the fact that um, I guess they felt that as Catherine Disher got older, she couldn't do the voice of Jean Grey like it was back then. Um, Aside from, of course, her role, being the voice of Jean Grey, she was also Dr. Natalie Lambert in Forever Night. If you've ever seen that show, that's a live action vampire show. Um, but anyways, yeah. So a lot of people were saying though it wasn't quite as bad. Now I don't know if the reason it wasn't quite as bad is because I do remember when we were covering that story quite a bit throughout the year here. I do remember there was a whole thing behind the showrunner Bo DeMaio, or who was let. Now they said he was let go because he was difficult to work with, but some people, well, no, they wanted to let him go because he was difficult to work with, but they couldn't until he, basically started, until it was revealed that he was sending, inappropriate pictures to other, the male staff members, and all that, and that's what got him fired. But one of the things people were saying that it wasn't quite as bad as it was being presented. And I don't know if part of that may have been because DeMaio, I think, had said that he really did want to try to push the boundaries. He really wanted to try to push the whole woke agenda with everything. And maybe after the backlash, maybe some of the execs said, something, maybe we want to tone this down a bit. And he just wouldn't tone it down. So they wanted to find a way to, get rid of him. That's possible. That's just a theory I'm throwing out there. But any comments on that idea there, Metal?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just that the guy was just hard to work with. I think that's just it. I don't think we even need any crazy theories about it or anything. And
well, I'm just throwing it out there. Just it'll probably be the first and last time I say anything about it. Just as we're wrapping this up, I just feel I'd throw it out there as a possibility. But but I don't really expect it to come up again at all, anyways. So, anyways, let's continue going through some of this stuff. So, let's see. Of course, you did have a lot of, and then there was a live action animated Woody Woodpecker sequel film, Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp, that premiered on Netflix on April 12th, as well as a Dora the Explorer reboot series simply called Dora that premiered on Paramount Plus. Let's see. The live action animated Sonic Hedgehog spin-off television series premiered, Knuckles premiered on Paramount Plus. And speaking of Fujio's works, Studio Bones anime series adaptation TP Bond premiered on Netflix on May 2nd. The season finale of X-Men 97 premiered on Disney Plus on May 15th. The one thing that I noticed that with streaming, it does seem like they're putting out more content now more now than ever with more of the streaming. Any
they have to. They actively have to, right? Because all these services are competing with each other, right? It's like the new cable, except you can't just get a package with all this stuff. You have to pay for each of these different streaming services separately, which means they have to be more competitive.
Yeah. Let's see. On May 26th, the second season of My Adventures with Superman premiered on Adult Swim. I believe that ran until I think early October. And then on May 29th, Japanese anime studio Gainax, which of course was known for its work on Neon Genesis Evangelion, files for bankruptcy. Any
That was
comments?
the best news of the entire year was Gainax filing for bankruptcy.
I take it you're not a big fan of Gainax.
I like a lot of their productions, but the problem is Gainax as a studio was horrible to the people who worked underneath them, causing even like their lead directors to leave. Like one of the guys who basically directed everything went and made his own studio, Trigger, and actually recently even got property rights back. Like there's going to be a new Panty and Stocking because it took Gainax filing for bankruptcy for him to get his property back from them.
All right. So, well, and we've heard about that over the years that a lot of the Japanese studios would like overwork their people Um, we saw a lot of that as well. Um, we've had a lot of that. That happened back on May 29th. Hmm. And in June, this is one of the things I had noted. Um, June 25th, MeTV Tunes, a new 24-hour network devoted to classic cartoons, was launched. Basically, it's kind of a modern day version of what Boomerang originally was back in the back there in the late 90s. You know, where MeTV Tunes, because I have it, with friendly TV on my Fire Stick here. And it's pretty cool. Granted, they have a lot of the Hanna-Barbera properties, but they also have like Fleischer and Famous Studio stuff. They have Universal Woody Woodpecker. They have the Harvey Toon stuff. So they got quite a bit of stuff there. Don't know if have you had a chance to check any of that out?
No, but I've watched the normal Me TV years ago, so I assume it is just the cartoon version of that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so. Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, it's funny as you passed it that that Japanese Suicide Squad isekai show was not unpopular in Japan. It wasn't very popular, but it was not unpopular.
Oh,
Like I saw some people
oh.
cosplaying the version of Harley from it, and it shows that they probably could get more popularity if they just let Japanese studios take over some of their proproperties for them.
Mm.
But
Well, yeah,
they need to do a little better.
that's talked about a lot too. How the what and it's becoming more of an issue now because you're now that it does seem like a lot of Japanese creators are hearing more and more about what these people are doing to their properties. You're They're coming out more and just not happy about it. When they're finding out, when people like Katrina Leonardakis and some of these other localizers are just completely um, basically just completely disrespecting their work, to take out the elements that they themselves find personally offensive, then, because I know there's actually a couple of Japanese creators who had become politicians in recent years who have been like kind of talking about that too. Um, so let's see. Yoshiyuki Momose's anime film The Imagery made its VOD video on demand debut on Netflix globally. Let's see. Second half of the eighth season of Futurama premiered on Hulu. Yeah, I've heard. I also heard that. In fact, it's kind of funny. My sister mentioned this to me too. So, I guess the Simpsons are no longer on Fox now. They're like, I guess they're on Disney Plus on the streaming service now. So that happened. But the thing with Futurama that happened on July 29th. On August 1st, Batman Cape Crusader premiered on Amazon Prime. Let's see. Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles premiered on Paramount Plus um, on August 9th. Let's see. Sony Pictures Animation's Fix gets dropped by Warner Brothers. That also has on. Let's see. Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon Cosmos, the movie, premiered on Netflix on August 22nd. Any comments there?
Sailor Moon's great. People should watch it.
All right. Let me just ask you this, because of course I don't know if you've watched both the Viz Media and the Deke Cloveway adaptations of it. Um, if you have watched both adaptations of it, which did you find better?
I prefer the Viz Media. I grew up watching the Deke one because that was the one that was available,
Right.
and man, is it awful! Like it was cool when I was a kid and didn't know any better, but they change so much that
Well,
it's like not
the
even cool.
term that came to be known for doing that was Bowderization. Okay, apparently this was something that goes all the way back to the 70s. So when Fred Ladd had decided to adapt Science Ninja Team Gatchaman in 1978, you know, it's the one that gave us Battle of the Planets, that adaptation
Yes.
of Science Ninja Team Gatchaman. Bowderization is a term they use for when you try to make like a Japanese product that has more mature elements in it into basically a kid's cartoon. They of course did
Yeah,
that
but
with
like
Moon.
Sailor Moon is for kids in Japan. It's just different standards. That's the real thing.
Yeah, you know.
But
Um,
yeah, no, we had a different term growing up that sounds almost the same, right? Either that or maybe I'm mishearing you, but we used to call it bastardization.
oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I know a lot of people feel that too, but yeah, the term I looked at it, looked it up before because I saw it when they were talking about it, Bowderization. I don't know where that term came. I mean, I could go look it up, but we're already obviously
Yeah.
pretty
But no, they
involved.
changed so much. Like, God, to try to make it, I don't even know, kid friendly, parent friendly, I think is probably the word, right?
Yeah,
Because it's what they thought the parents would approve from. They Sailor Moon is a very, very homoerotic series,
yeah,
like just straight up. And they've tried to take as much of that out of it as they possibly could, including making two lovers cousins just to try to get away with it.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
from Sailor Moon S and Supers, Sailors Uranus
And
and
Neptune.
Neptune. Yeah,
Yeah. And there's also the ones they kind of just made them, I guess, like cross dressers because that was easier for them to get through. But there was the Star Scouts or whatever, the Dark Stars.
Sailor Stars. Yeah, as I
Yeah,
understand, that one was only more recently adapted. They could not adapt that back in the 90s because of that, because you
yeah,
actually had the characters actually transfer. It's funny because when I was looking up for the animes to watch recently, right? Um, I don't know. This one's a bit of an older one, so I don't know if you would have heard of this, but there was an anime back in the 60s called Princess Knight about where the main character, she was a girl but had to pretend to be a boy to protect the throne of her father was like the king. He was killed off, and in order to keep her evil uncle from taking over the um the throne, she had to pretend to be a boy because it was basically a patriarchal society where only men could rule basically. And so she had to pretend to be a boy to keep her uncle, who her corrupt
yes. No, I know
uncle.
this. I didn't know it was called Princess Knight. This is a Tezuka story. It's a very popular one. I
Yeah.
know it is Ruben no Kishi.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it was delayed. Like, and they couldn't delay. They couldn't. They dubbed it eventually in 1972 because when Tezuka and them pitched the idea to NBC knocked it down because they felt that the translation was set. They thought that in the translation it was saying sex switch. You know,
Yeah.
So that was kind of kind of I guess an early Now, granted, this is one of those stories when I looked at it, I like whereas I might have some issues with Rama one half because of that kind of stuff, but this kind of reminded me more of some elements from like Shura no Toki, where in the first arc there, the girl is pretending to be a boy, you know, again to keep an evil uncle from, you know, her usurping her position. But um, you know, but anyways, continuing on here. Let's see. On September 30th, Boomerang shuts down its streaming service after being moved to Max. The final episode of Velma premieres on October 3rd. The final episode of Velma premieres on Max following the intense negative backlash of the show. And I know that I do know that Yellow Flash covered that quite a bit. Where I guess I don't know if it's still the same here, but I guess Velma was one of the lowest rated shows ever on IMDb. Any comments there, Metal?
I'm not aware of that, but that sounds about right. I know one of the other lowest rated series ever was that Santa Claus Inc. by Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman. But yeah, no, I could see Velma being right there with it.
Yeah. Just I think the obvious self insert, and then obviously all the obviously a lot of the older fans were turned off by it, and there was even an accusation when they tried to introduce Scooby Doo into it. You know, instead of making Scooby Doo Shaggy's, of course, dog, Scooby Doo was a black girl, and and there was some heat driven towards it because of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish to forget about that show, just in general.
Well, this is going to probably be the last time we're talking about it. I'm just reviewing what's all happening. I mean, it was something that went down this past year, so you know, this will probably be the last time we say anything about it, unless, of course, it just happened more news. But as I understand it, I don't think there is another season. I mean, I know they were contracted for additional seasons, but as I understand it, I think they've shelved it, indefinitely. Because of the negative backlash. The final season of Star Trek Lower Decks premieres on Paramount Plus. That happened on October 4th. So let's see. On October 11th, Dragon Ball Daima premieres. Any
Which I have
comments?
been keeping up with.
Huh?
I have been keeping up with Dragon Ball Daima since it's the last work that Toriyama got to be a part of before passing away.
Hmm. Any comments on that since you have been?
I've been enjoying it. I like it more than Super, you know.
Hmm.
So there's that.
All right, let's see. Pamela on November 20th. Pamela Hayden, American actress who voiced Milhouse Van Houston, Jimbo Jones, and more, retired from The Simpsons after 35 years. I do remember reading a bit about that. Again, any comments there?
Not really. I mean, I always enjoyed her performance as Milhouse, but I also haven't watched The Simpsons in many years, so I'm probably not going to be missing it.
Yeah. Um, November 27th, Moana 2 was released by Walt Disney Animation Studios. Let's see, as we now get into December here. Let's see. DC Studio on December 5th, DC Studios Creature Commandos premiered on Max. Part 1 of the third and final season of Beastars premiered on Netflix. let's see, the animated feature-length Lord of the Rings film, The War of the Rohirrim, from Warner Brothers Pictures, was released. Final episode of Lower Decks premiered on Paramount Plus on December 19th. Let's see. The final season of What If premiered on Disney Plus on December 22nd. And from what I understand of that, though, it's kind of funny. We were talking about Bo DeMaio earlier because of X-Men. He and Grace Randolph recently came out and had some very major criticisms for this third season, involving one of the stories. You know, there was that. So that's all the stuff that happened in animation. So let's at least get down to the. So we'll kind of go. I'll try to go through these as quickly as possible. The in memoriams. William Samples, American actor, who of course voiced Tantalus in Clash of the Titans, Charles Grayson in Sherlock Holmes, in the 22nd century, Samuel Tillinghast in Project Arms. He also provided the voice of Taihei Hiraga in Master Keaton, passed away at the age of 71. Glynis Jones, who was a British actress, probably for most people, probably remembered for a role as Mrs. Grimwood in Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, and she had a few other voice roles here. Passed away at the age of 100. And there were a few actors and actresses that were actually coming close to 100. Not all of them made it to 100, but Glynis Jones did. Let's see. Haruo Takahashi, who was a Japanese animator who worked on Tiger Mask, Silver Fang, and Inspector Gadget, passed away at the age of 76. Tiger Mask was a anime based on a professional wrestler, but actually it's this that actually ended up helping lead to the actual Tiger Mask coming into being into our world, as it were. Let's see. Greg Finley, American voice actor who provided the voice of Captain Global and Anatole Leonard in the Robotech franchise, provided additional voices of Oliver and Company, Baby's Kids, Garfield's Pet Force, dies at the age of 76. Let's see. Again, with all these names, I'm just kind of trying to focus more on the ones who are probably a little bit more well known and more well known for their cartoon work, because obviously we have some bigger names here, but not as much for their. They weren't known as much for their cartoon work. They were more known. And even here, they put in Akira Toriyama here too.
Well, I mean, he was equally influential to the animation industry because of the stuff that got adapted, and like everyone likes to throw reference back at Dragon Ball.
Yeah. Mutsumi Inomata, who is a Japanese animator who worked on Fist of the North Star, Urusei Yatsura, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Destiny, Space Warrior Baldios, that has a Yoko City Hunter, passed away at the age of 63. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. All right. See, Joe Flaherty, who provided the voice of Count Floyd in Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley, lawyer in General and Heavy Metal. Let's see. Hoofed in Legend of Tarzan. Cloak Skull in Timo Supremo. He was Don Knotts' one of the. He was among many voices, and Family Guy included Don Knotts' assistant there. He passed away at the age of 82. Let's see. Mm-hmm. On May 22nd, Daryl Hickman, who provided a voice of Kid Common in Space Stars. Let's see. Pac Jr. in Pac Man. Hornet in Challenge of the GoBots. Rhodey in Pole Position. Let's see. Marbles in GoBots Battle of Rock Lords. RJ Scott and Steve Trevor and the Superpowers Team Galactic Guardians episode of The Dark Side Deception. There's no voices, of course, in Wildfire, Scooby, and Scrappy Doo. He passed away at the age of 92. Let's see. Benji Gregory. Now, granted, he's more known for his role as Brian Tana on Alf. He was Biff Jr. in Back to the Future, animated version. Ben Letterman in Fantastic Max. He passed away at the age of 46. Let's see. Tom Weiner, who is known, of course, he provided the voice of Grimlock in Transformers Robots in Disguise, Inspector Blooper, The New Adventures of John Gantor. Roman, and this happened on July 10th. Roman and Waiter in Vampire Hunter D. Dr. Jonathan Wolf in the Robotech franchise. Probably his most famous role was as M. Bison in the some of the Street Fighter franchises. He passed away at the age of 77. Shelley Duvall, who we know was the live-action Olive Oil in 1980, also provided the voice of Oka in All Real Monsters. Among others, she passed away at the age of 75. Let's see. Whitney Ryback, who is American, he provided some additional voice in Oliver and Company. He died at the age of 70. Now, the only reason I'm pointing him out, he's not as well known outside of here in Southern California in LA, because Whitney Ryback was the taxi cab driver Whitney on the KNBC produced children's show Whitney and the Robot back in the early 80s. That'd be a pretty good show. I grew up watching it. Bailey adopted an alien robot who came to Earth to find out about Earth and its activities. So Um, Anything to say on any of this thus far? Because
No, not really. But I see Bob Newhart up, and that one hit me kind of hard when it happened.
yeah. Well, again, not somebody who's known as much for his cartoon work, more for his live action work. But yes, he was the voice of Bernard in The Rescuers and Rescuers Down Under, Leonard in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, himself, and of course, a lot of people have done themselves in in The Simpsons, though.
Yeah. Hey, I loved the Rescuers growing up, so like this is kind of important.
Yeah. Well, he was 94, so he lived a pretty good long life there
Oh
too.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
On August 8th, Mitzi McCall passed away. She was actually a bit of a well-known voice actress, particularly back in the 60s and 70s. Um, of course, I know she was Penny Pillar in Pebbles and Bam Bam Show, Ammonia Pine in Darkwing Duck, Mother Goose and Mother Goose in Grimm. She was Tallulah Latren and Yo Yogi. She'd been around for quite a few years. Mama Slaughter in Captain Planet and Planeteers. She passed away at the age of 93. Her career goes all the way back to I think the early 70s at least. You know, and she was you look at some of these titles. She was well active from the early 70s well into the 90s there. And of course, I'm sure you probably might have something to say about this next one. On August 10th, Rachel Lillis passed away at the age of 55 from breast cancer. Of course, the voice of Misty, Jessie, and Jigglypuff, the first 8 seasons of Pokemon. Utena Tenjo and a Revolutionary Girl Utena, Needle Freaks, and well, okay, she was Hunter x Hunter, the 2011 version of that. Um, I know she was also she was involved in quite a few of the New York based stuff. But anything you'd like to say on Rachel Lillis there?
I don't think I have anything more to say than when we talked about it, or you asked about it on my show when like the day that it happened from the audience, and it's just I've always enjoyed her performances. That's it, you know.
Yeah, now I just remembered the other one, Yuriko Star from um, from the irresponsible Captain Tyler. So let's see. And then we get into September here. Peter Renedy passed away back on September 8th. Of course, known for his work as Splinter in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the 80s. Abraham Lincoln in Animaniacs and Evil Con Carne. Uncle Sam in Batman the Brave and the Bold, Cry Freedom Fighters. Howard Stark in an Iron Man episode. Also, of course, he was Grapple in the G1 Transformers cartoon, um, as well as Mandrake the Magician and Defenders of the Earth. He passed away at the age of 89. Um, let's see. Maggie Smith, English actress who voiced Lady Blueberry in Romeo and Juliet and Sherlock Gnomes, died at age 89. Now, mind you, that was on September 27th. Now, the only reason I'm even bringing her up, even though she didn't have as many credits in terms of animation, back in the Golden Age, right? Back in the Golden Age, they did bring her in a few times to like do singing parts. She was known as a singer, among other things. So I think um, she's brought in for a few singing parts in the Golden Age.
I see you
Uh,
skip right over James Earl Jones, even though his two most famous roles are of voice acting.
oh yeah, with Mufasa and the Lion King and Darth Vader
Yeah.
in Star Wars franchise. Well, I yeah because he has a. I guess you do make a point
There's
there.
quite a list of voiceovers that he's done. It's just people also know him as a live actor.
And I know a lot of his work from his. I think most people know him more from his live action work than from his voice.
I don't know. I think these days Mufasa and Darth Vader are probably the two roles most people associate with him.
Hmm. Could be. And of course, his passing happened. Let's see, as I get back to it, back on September 9th. We get back into. So Doc Harris, who's a Canadian radio broadcaster, he passed away at the age of 76. Let's see, he served as narrator for like Captain N and the Game Master, The New Adventures of
Oh, one of
He-Man,
my favorite shows.
The New Adventures of He-Man, and the Ocean Productions dub of Dragon Ball. He also was captain of Eat Man 8, Golem, and Monster Rancher, among others.
Yeah, no, Doc Harris. That was pretty sad because he did so much of the like he's the voice you associate with Dragon Ball Z in the early dub.
Before
Like the
Funimation
next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Terry Garr, and probably she provided the voice of Mary McGinnis in Batman Beyond, Harley Quinn in Aloha, Scooby Doo, Selena in The Legend of Prince Valiant. She passed away at the age of 79 back on October 29th. And we get into November here. Alan Rankins provided the voice of Norman Osborn in Spectacular Spider-Man and Clock King in the DC animated universe. I like that portrayal of. Granted, it wasn't like the way I'm talking about. They actually went with a new direction for the Clock King instead of being just somebody who just used clocks as a theme. Well, he still kind of, but was a little bit more methodical. He was more of an efficiency expert. Wasn't as much about having clock-based weapons. It was just, he was more of an efficiency expert. He passed away at the age of 82 there on November 2nd. Tony Todd, who, of course, lent his voice to being Darkseid DC and a movie universe, as well as Icon and Young Justice, Scareglow and Masters of the Universe Revelation, Astaroth and Batman Brave and the Bold episode Trials of the Demon. Dan Hennessy, who is a well-known Canadian, he passed away back on November 13th. He was the voice of Braveheart Lion in the Care Bear franchise, RoboCop in RoboCop, Chief Quimby in Inspector Gadget, Bully Koopa in The Adventures of Super Mario. Also from the X-Men animated series cartoon from back in the 90s. He, of course, provided the voices of Boulevard Trask, Abraham Cornelius, Thunder, Ruckus, and Chrome.
Yeah, it's a few of these guys who did work with like Ocean Group and Deke Animations and stuff like this passed away.
Yeah, he passed. He was 82 years old. He passed. Let's see. Morgan Lofting passed away at the age of 84 back on November 27th. Of course, her most famous role was as Baroness in G.I. Joe: Real American Hero. Also, she's Moonracer and Firestar in Transformers, Aunt May and Black Cat in the 1980s Spider-Man cartoon, like Spider-Man that led into the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends show. So she passed away at the age of 84. Let's see. Diane Delano, who lent her voice to a few of the DC animated works in the 90s and 2000s, of course, is Mav Riedel in the Ben 10 franchise. She was Stompa in Superman the animated series, Pantha in Teen Titans, Big Barda and Batman Brave and the Bold, the Last Battle on Earth episode. So, of course, Olivia Hussey, she just passed away back on the 27th. She provided the voice of Talia al Ghul in the DC animated universe, as well as Queen and Pinky and the Brain in 1973. And this one's kind of a, even though I know she's not as much, she did, obviously she had some animated work here, but she's known more for her role as Alice and for her stage work. Linda Lavin just passed away like 2 days ago at the age of 87. And the thing about Linda Lavin, too, is that she was working well up until the very end here, and we're going to talk about somebody else who was doing the same thing when we do the in memorials for the wrestlers. But Linda Lavin, they said she was working as recently as like 2 weeks prior to her passing here. I mean, the fact that she was already in her late 80s, was still working, that in of itself is pretty remarkable, wouldn't you say, Metal?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these people were, too, right? Like, not all of them. There's a few of them that retired, but like, technically, James Earl Jones had worked within the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of people they just work till they die.
Yeah. So anyway, so now of course we're gonna move on, and all we're gonna do for the wrestling stuff is just go through the in memoriams there.
I will preemptively, that I probably will have nothing to say about almost anyone in here.
Yeah, I figured as much because I figured as much. I mean, even if I had more of the guys here, I knew that. That's why I was only doing the in memoriam, because I figured nobody would really have anything to say about them, only because of they don't they're not following rest. Like if James
Yeah,
Lee,
I just don't know
if
them.
James Lee was here, if James Lee, then we'd probably be talking a little bit more about it. But considering that none of you are really, kind of currently following wrestling like I am, it wouldn't make much sense to go through all that, unless I was here on my own or something like that. But back on January 23rd, Ice Train, Harold Hogue, passed away at the age of 56. Known for, of course, his time WCW. And I'll just wait till after, because I didn't realize I just forgot to do the moment of silence for the animation people. But I'll just do all that here after I'm done with this. Ole Anderson, who is one of the original Four Horsemen, passed away at the age of 81 back on February 26th. Virgil, of course, known for his time in the WWF and later WCW as Vincent, passed away at the age of 61. He was initially Ted DiBiase's valet, and then the last of the Vachon family passed on. Paul Butcher Vachon passed away at the age of 86 back on February 29th. At the age of 86, we said. Sika passed away. Sika of the Wild Samoan, and Roman Reigns' father, passed away at the age of 79 back on June 25th, and then of course his brother Afa passed away on August 16th at the age of 81. Of course, the Wild Samoans were probably considered one of the greatest tag teams of the late 70s, early 80s. And of course, after their career ended, Afa in particular opened up the Wild Samoan Wrestling Training School, which would train not only many of the current Samoan members of the WWE roster, like Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and all that, but also guys like former WWE superstar Batista, Gene Snitsky. Let's see. And then on August 9th, Kevin Sullivan passed away at the age of 74. Of course, known for his work primarily in WCW and in the NWA territories, kind of bringing the darkness, the Prince of Darkness gimmick more to the forefront. On August 26th, Sid Udy, everybody would remember him as Sid Vicious or Sid Justice or Psycho Sid, passed away at the age of 63. Probably considered one of the most talented, in my opinion, one of the most talented big men in the business. Career was unfortunately cut a little short by the fact that WCW apparently wanted to have him do moves off the ropes, and he wasn't comfortable with it, and that's what ended up breaking his leg, trying to do a jumping big boot off the second rope. Yano 5, who spent some time in the mid to late 90s in WCW, passed away at the age of 62. Former Japanese junior heavyweight star Kuniaki Kobayashi passed away at the age of 68. I think a multiple-time IWGP junior heavyweight champion. Scorpio Jr. passed away at the age of 58 on November 7th. Kuniaki back on September 9th for Kuniaki Kobayashi. And then this is the other guy I was telling you about earlier when I was talking about Linda Lavin. Jax Dane passed away. Now, it says here 43, but it used technically 48. Passed away on Christmas Day of this year from complications of a heart attack he suffered back in November. He was still an active member of the NWA roster. He was probably considered the most decorated individual of the NWA's Lightning One era. That's the era where Billy Corgan has been the owner of the National Wrestling Alliance. A two-time national heavyweight champion, former NWA World Heavyweight, multiple-time NWA World Tag Team Champion. I think he held it twice with Rob Conway as the Iron Gods. So, anyways, with that, and I want to.
You're gonna have to explain this discrepancy to me, right? About his age, and how he's 43, but he's technically 48. Because I just did a quick Google too, and it's got two different years of birth for him.
It does? Because I know, I know the NWA. Well, let's see. Let's see what it says here. Yeah, I don't even know why that is, but so here it says he was born. So even here it says, so on his actual page here, it says he was born March 10th, 1976. Died, so that would make him 48 right there. But yet,
yeah, that's what it says on his Wikipedia too. Is it that like the character he played was 5 years younger than him, so they're giving the age of his character?
No, they don't. They don't usually do that.
Okay.
They don't.
Because when Google, you look it up, and you know how they have like that little side entry for them, which a lot of it comes from Wikipedia. It says born without a year or without a month or a day, just 1981, though his actual Wikipedia says March 10th, 1976.
Yeah. So let me go. Let's see. And the thing is, he was pretty, even here on his cage match page, it says he was born. Well, based on how I'd read it here, it's April 10th, 1976. So, there are a few discrepancies here and there, with all that, which shouldn't be. But let's see. Well, I know you already said that you went to his Wikipedia page. Now, where we were at there was the pro wrestling wiki. Yeah, there it's kind of funny when you search for it. You're right. They say 1981 to 2024. obviously somebody in the editing department doesn't know what they're doing. That's the only way I could really say it. I don't, because they usually don't, they usually don't like have, you know, the character's age being different from the actual person's age. I mean, because they're more or less one. Because if you anything you know about professional wrestling, they're in character almost all of the time, basically. You know, um, in other words, when they go out and about, you know, they usually prefer people refer to them by their character, by their stage name, than their real name. If you don't
Yeah.
actually know, you're not like family or something like that.
Yeah. It's part of the thing. Like you basically hold the presence at all times.
Right. It's oh yeah, keeping kayfabe. That's what the term is.
Yeah.
Keeping kayfabe. Even though kayfabe has been blurred in more recent years with the internet and all that, but here it says March 10th, 1976. I'll go to one more reference here. IMDb. You would be on IMDb, I believe. And there it said, so there's even some discrepancy there. Some say April 10th, 1976, some say March. But regardless of all that, Jack Dane, 48 years old, he was pretty much active as of their last major event, which was Samhain back in October. He was actually involved in a storyline with Tim Storm, another former NWA World Champion of the Lightning One era, and they even mentioned, when I looked up the thing here earlier, Jack Dane held the NWA World Heavyweight title for 419 days, so for well over a year. So, he was still a pretty well respected man within that locker room. So, with that being said, before we do anything else, and before I forget again, why don't we go ahead and do a quick moment of silence um, for those who who we lost in the worlds of animation, anime, and pro wrestling. So we'll do another moment of silence, and then we'll start to wrap up. We'll get through the this day in each history segments, and then finish everything off. All right. So with that, now the last thing we'll do before we close everything out um, is with today being, of course, the last day of 2024, um, being December 31st, 2024. Let's take a look back at this day in each history. History! So, first thing we're going to do, we're going to head back to 1999. As on this date 25 years ago today, so let's pull it up here. Let's see. American television and film composer William Lorenzo Bunt, known professionally as Dean Elliott, passed away at the age of 82. He, of course, was well known for doing some of the music compositions for Chuck Jones, for the Patty Frayling Enterprises, and Ruby Spears Enterprises. So on this date, back in 1999, Dean Elliott, American composer, passed away at the age of 82. So now getting ready to move on to the next thing here. On this date in 2009, 2009, I believe. Yeah, 2009. This date, which was, of course, 15 years ago today. This date, 15 years ago today. Electromagnetic waves, Kora Rekake no Orgel, translated as Half Broken Music Box, was a one episode Dojin anime OVA that was released by Electromagnetic Wave on this date back in 2009. On this date in 2009, Electromagnetic Waves Dojin anime original OVA, Kora Rekake no Orgel, was released on this date back in 2009. You heard of that at all, or there, Metal? Metal? I guess he must be away from the computer or something. All right. Well, hopefully he can still hear me. I hope he's still within earshot of what I'm saying here. I was hoping, wasn't sure if he had heard of that particular OVA, but anyways, we'll move on here to the last piece that happened in 2013, which was 11 years ago today. On this day, 11 years ago today, the 525th issue of Mad Magazine from EC Comics went on sale on this date back in 2013, 11 years ago today. So on this date, 11 years ago today, the 525th issue of Mad Magazine from EC Comics went on sale on this date, sold for $5.99, was 56 pages. So now with that, so now that we're through 2024 here, let me just mention this to everybody. So starting tomorrow will, of course, be our This Day in Each History segment will be, of course, those will be changing. The start points for each of the genres for comics, for the comics genre, the starting point will be 1935 for the This Day in Each History segment. For professional wrestling, it'll be 1950, 75 years. So 1935, which is 90 years ago for the comic. For the wrestling genre, 75 years ago. In 1950. Metal, are you back now?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I had to pee.
Okay, I didn't even know you walked away. I was asking about the OVA, if you had actually watched Korake Kake no Orgo, the OVA.
That doesn't sound like something I've watched before. I figured since you were doing like This Day in Niche History, that would have been the perfect time to wander off and use the restroom.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'm just letting everybody know, like starting tomorrow, the start points for the This Day in Each History segments. As I mentioned, 1935, 90 years ago for the comics, 1950, 75 years ago for pro wrestling. For animation or cartoons, it would be 1925, 100 years ago. And for anime, 1965, 60 years ago. So with that, I do hope everybody enjoyed the show. I hope everybody enjoyed, a lot of the work I've been doing this year. Hope we can get more people in to watch and stuff like that. Before we go, Metal, did you want to do any, close out promoting, share any links?
I'll share a single link. I don't know exactly when we're going live tonight, but for anybody who happens to not be going to bed at a normal time, which on New Year's, that tends to be the one day most people don't go to bed on a normal time, we will be streaming on the Vomitorium Live, the normal channel. So People can hang out there. Don't know what we're doing exactly. Might play some games. Might just chat. We'll have people in and out. But yeah.
Are you gonna have like are you gonna like post the link if people want to join you in the studio or no?
If I'm doing studio stuff, it'll be in the Discord like we always do. So
Okay. So you have to actually
yeah,
have okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, there's the link if you guys want to go check out the vomitorium afterwards here. All right. So before one last thing as I leave you, as of course um as Metal did just mention, people tend to obviously stay up a little later on New Year's Eve and they tend to party a bit. So I wanted to conclude the show with just some friendly advice for people. You know, be safe, be careful, be aware of your limits. You know, to where we see you back here in 2025. Have fun, but still be safe. You know, be be safe. Be careful, and just remember your limits. So we can see you back here tomorrow. And with that, I shall bid you all adieu. I will see you tomorrow. I'll see you next year. Have a happy new year, everybody. And we are out. As soon as I click the end stream.